When do I think the reset will happen is a question that I get on my channel regularly. And the answer is, it already has happened. Everything that needs to be designed has been designed. All the infrastructure is in place. The only component left to facilitate this reset is action. As of today, the central bankers and the biggest of the commercial banks are ready to go into full solvency wind down. The central bank digital currency that will follow this reset and be used as your saviour has already been designed by the Digital Currency Monetary Authority, the DCMA. They have designed a Unicoin, a UMU, Crypto 2, designed to run on a new blockchain style specification as specified under ISO TC 307. It's all done. It's all there. Beyond that, we've got tokenisation, and of course, that would happen immediately following the flattening of the derivatives markets globally. So what we may see here is that the central bankers, together with the biggest commercial banks in the world, will go flat on their derivatives positions. And what this means is they will collapse one of the biggest markets in the world, bringing down corporations, possibly even countries, and mums and dads. It is a total wipeout for at least 70% of the middle class in the Western world. No wonder the BRICS nations are scrambling to move as far away from the US dollar as they can possibly get. But this is all by design. None of it has to happen. And every reset is the same. Every reset starts with a loss of confidence, then a run on the banks, and finally, the complete collapse of the monetary system. But the good news is that between the Treasury and the central banks, and the biggest of the commercial banks, there's always a solution. No great reset comes without having a pre-planned solution, already to hand over to the common man. And this next reset is just like all the others. There's a loss of confidence in the system. There's been a run on the banks for a while now. The only problem is the middle class in the West has no idea what to do with their funds once they take them out of the commercial bank, because real estate, which I believe is weaponised, is the only asset of choice for the middle classes. The wealthy classes will be affected in this as well, because they use financial advisors who invariably tell them to buy stocks, shares, equities and bonds, and to take derivatives positions against their real-world assets. So they'll largely be caught up in this. This affects everybody all the way up the chain. And the initial plan is to move us to tokenisation, where the securities that were once your property have been collateralised by your commercial banks. And those very securities, which are held in a giant pool, will be taken by entitled secured creditors and the new custodians of what used to be your property, which is now theirs. This is already in position. There's nowhere for this to really go from here. It's all been done. Once your assets have been pooled, they will then be tokenised and traded through digital assets corporations operating on Wall Street on behalf of investors who will be hungrily waiting to buy up tokens in this incredible liquid pool that previously didn't exist. The wealth that will be created here will be beyond your imagination. And while all this is going on and the investors are buying into what used to be your property, securities and so on. Mums and dads aren't going to have a clue what just happened. Most people will attempt to fight the system, the very system that just took them down, the very system that it's designed to take them out. There'll be some that just simply, it will be too much to bear. And we saw that on March 6, 1933, the human cost. And then there's going to be a few, such as people that beat the reset, who see the great opportunity in a tokenised system and become early adopters. There are some that agree with that, and there's some that don't. However, these resets come with great opportunity as well, not just heartache and pain. But if you can't see the opportunity, there's no way you can take advantage of it. And if you have no wealth to invest in this new world, you also can't take advantage of it. So if you don't commoditize, as I've been screaming from the rooftops now for the best part of 2 years, if you are simply refusing to, or you don't know about it, or you haven't got around to it, if you haven't commoditized, then the question is, what are you going to have to trade? You won't have anything to trade on the other side of this reset. I also talk about ISO 222 cryptocurrencies, which I've come under fire from all my Bitcoin friends over. But when you do the research, you find that ISO 222 underpins largely the central bank's new world and the Digital Twin Cities program. And talking about the Digital Twin Cities program, this is largely information that most people have never heard of. But when you start looking into digital twin, you realize that it is as complex as it is confusing, as it is dystopian. The digital twin system is the culmination of tokenisation, central bank digital currencies, UBI, universal basic incomes, and everything else that's dystopian, from carbon credits to smart grids to the Internet of Things. And there's a technology designed for every single one of them, all fully funded by the central bank system. Throughout this journey, many people believed that it was the United Nations that was driving all of this. It was the World Economic Forum, they're the ones. But in reality, you only have to follow the money to get to any answer to any crime. And that, of course, leads you straight to the central bankers, who, without them, the United Nations probably would not exist. Wars wouldn't happen, and most of the dystopian events that we see around the globe wouldn't be possible without the funding of central bankers. And the digital twin system was installed in Victoria in October of 2022, just as we came out of lockdowns. And people who live in the city of Melbourne in Australia would understand that every street lamp has a camera on it. The 5G/6G grids are alive and well. And we are starting to see some of the reasons why Melbourne may have been the most locked down city in the world, because this is exactly where digital twin began, at a cost of $400 million taxpayers' money just for the installation. And as I've spoken about previously, fully designed over a long period of time by McKinsey & Co, Rolls-Royce and the Department of Defence. And the digital twin city is incredibly important for us to know about, because it is the culmination of everything, basically. The ultimate control grid, the sort of world you would never want to live in. And I'm not even sure how we would live in it, to be totally honest. From your tessellated carbon footprint, every time you take a step in the real world, you will be charged. You will be charged to live and use and access property, whether it be a park bench, whether it be the ocean or a forest or a river. This will become a tokenized asset. And if it's tokenized, it's investor owned. And if it's investor owned, somebody wants to get a return. And the only way you can get a return is if somebody's going to pay for it. And that person is you and I. This is our new world. We can choose to put our head in the sand and pretend none of this is happening. But if you look up digital twin, you'll realize everything I'm telling you is correct. If you look up Unicoin, it has already been built and designed. If you look up tokenization, you'll see that I am right. It is all there. All you need to know now is that the mechanism for all of this to happen is the collapsing of the $5 quadrillion derivatives complex. And that lies in the hands of the central bankers and the biggest of the commercial banks. And when they get the green light, which will most likely coincide with a black swan or false flag event, most likely on US soil involving the United States, when they get the green light, they will go flat on their derivatives positions and they will collapse global markets overnight. This has all been tried and tested over 7 years in a trilateral test between the United States, the UK and the EU. A test which took 7 years to complete and involved the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation in the United States, the Federal Treasury, the Securities Exchange Commission, the Federal Reserve, the European Central Bank, and the Bank of England. Everything I am telling you is 100% accurate. We are sitting at yellow light, waiting for the green light. That's when your reset will happen. This is going to happen. It has to happen. And these resets have happened many times before. And one thing I want for people on this channel is to be prepared, but also to take full advantage of any opportunity that presents itself. And as I said, the only way you will ever be able to do that is if you understand what's coming, you don't act out of fear, fear is not required, and that you actually have something to trade, which is why I continually say diversify, move away from the commercial banks, reduce your debt footprint. Make sure you have physical cash on hand, even though we're going cashless. Invest in ISO 20022 technologies, but most of all, above all, make sure you have commoditized your wealth into physical monetary assets, physical gold and physical silver, and the most important of those two, in my opinion, is most definitely physical silver. And beyond that, you need to get your mindset right. We have a war coming, and we need to get as many of us home as possible. That is our job. That's our job as humans, as people, as parents, as brothers and sisters. Your neighbours are as important as your loved ones. Everybody's important in this. My advice to you all is look after your health. That is your number one non-negotiable. There was already an attempt to have that taken away from us. That's your non-negotiable. Your next is your loved ones. Protect them at all costs. Your children, the elderly, people who aren't aware. There's no need to point your finger at them, laughing at people who don't know as much as you do. That's not required right now. We're more than that. We're better than that. And finally, the big one is diversify your wealth. Protect yourself and ensure that you create opportunity that you'll be able to take advantage of as we go through this reset together. And most of all, make good choices.